Today, what we're going to talk about is playing over 2-5-1s. It doesn't matter if you want to be a jazz player or playing a number of other styles. This is something that you should know how to do. And today I've got a play-along track, and we're going to talk about sort of incrementally stepping through different methods that you can use and different methods of practice that you can start to institute in your own practice sessions. And so the first one that I'm going to start with is simply playing the roots of the chords. I know for some of you that might be really, really simple, but we need to begin somewhere with a foundation. A 2-5-1, by the way, is going to be found in a scale. Like these chords will be taken out of, in this case, the key of C major. So the D minor 7 D F A C are the notes in the chord, are all in the scale of C major. G, B, D, F are all in the scale of C major. I'm not worried about the altered part of it right now. And then C, E, G, B, or it would be a C major 7. All those notes would be found in a C major scale. So effectively, a C major scale is going to work through all of this. You know, if you want to play in that diatonic sort of way, that diatonic approach, that's possible. But you're going to be missing the altered notes here, which I'd like to talk about a little bit today too. So a good place to start, as I said, is just with the root of the chord. And let's just listen to the play-along track, and I'm going to play the boring root of each chord. And the one thing about the boring root is that you know it's going to be right. Here in the middle of the fretboard. That's just a C root. And we can move up a little bit. D, G, again, just a root. So on. Okay, so as you can see, what I'm doing there is I had a couple of neighbor tones and passing notes there, not much, but you could probably hear those. So all I'm doing is just sussing out the fretboard, playing the roots of the chords. I'm not trying to get fancy, and what I'm playing, will sound sort of right because I'm just playing the notes that are in the chords. Now, if I take this one step further, how about we go to the fifth of the chord? So in the case of, because I'm trying to play the notes that are in the chord. So in the case of a D minor 7 chord, D, F, A, C, D, F, A is my fifth, and I'm going to get the fifth below. Right, and then here's my G, fifth below. So G and C. Right, I'll just do a little bit of that, and the same thing holds true. We are going to move across the entire fretboard. I won't do that right now, but I'll just give you an idea how this goes, right? so on. What that accomplishes is that you're filling out the chord. When we play the root and the 5 of the chord, it is not telling us a whole bunch about the quality of the chord, and that's why I'm doing it in this order. If I add the third, when I add the third is going to tell me if the chord is major or minor. So that's sort of a big step. So now if I combine the third, right, there's my fifth below, and I'm getting the third on top. And as you can see, I'm spelling out a little minor triad. And then G7, and let's, G. Right, or I could go, right, the same thing, just sort of moving around the fretboard. And this gives me obviously more harmonic material. That, by the way, what I just did there is a chromatic lower neighboring tone. Okay, so let's just listen to the challenges that are present in this simple exercise. You can hear that, and I can work that around the fretboard. Okay, so far we've got 3 notes, and those 3 notes, the 1, the 3, and the 5, or in the order that we were doing it, the 1, the 5, and the 3, which would be essentially inverting the chord. Now, when I add the 7th, really starts to tell me more about the chord. Now, you'll notice that with the C major chord here, that triangle just says it's a C major triad, but it's most common to play that. I'm sorry, the triangle doesn't necessarily say that it's a triad. And what it says wouldn't be a bad idea, but what it says is that it's a C major chord, and the foundation of that C major chord is the C major triad. But I can also add the 7th on top. I can add more notes than that, but I'm just going to add the 7th on top. So I can add the 7th here, I can add the 7th here, and I can add the 7th here. And when we start adding 7ths, the colors become far more interesting. And they're not terribly difficult to play. So if again we sort of stick in this region here on the D. So we have the root, the 3, back the root to the 5, and we're going to play the 7th below the root, a tone below the root. There's my 7th, the C note in the D minor 7. And then G, we have the root, 3, and the same thing, 7th below. And then on the root, on the C, and with the major 7th, the major 7th is going to be a semitone below. There's my 7th, it's a B, right? So here I have the D, there's my 7th, and then here's my C with the 5th below and my major 7. And and the 3, and then the G, and there's my 5th below. So just sort of trying to stick with. Of course, you can extrapolate this all across the fretboard. I'm not going to start doing that right now because it would just take too much time. But what I'm trying to introduce you to is a method whereby you can start to nail changes and do so systematically. Here we go. Let me add that 7th a little bit. And so on, right? So I did throw in some scale tones from the scale of C. You have to be really careful with that because it starts to sound very scale-like if you do that, but if you combine the two, and you can hear what I'm doing there, I think, right? As soon as you start to define the chords, it just sounds so much better. And you start to erase that line that's between chord playing and soloing but when you play chord tones, before you know it, you're implying chord shapes, if you will, or chord voicings, I would prefer. See, and we played each of these notes here. G. And we were doing, using exactly those same notes in the improvisation. Okay, so that's it. That's an introduction to playing in 2-5-1s. I've done several videos playing in the blues. And I'm going to do lessons like this with a whole bunch of standards because it's sort of fun. And you can get this. I'll link this in the descriptions. It's a nice, simple play-along track. As far as alterations go, we'll talk about G7 altered. Very common to alter the 5 chord, C, D, E, F, G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 chord, G7. The notes in the G7 chord are G, B, D, F, right? Be able to converse in that way, even if it's just internally. And an altered, if I wanted to alter the G7, I could raise, for instance, the 5. Here's my 1, 3, 5. I'm going to raise it, right? Or I can flat the 9. Here's my 9, flat 9, G7 with a flat 9. Or G13 with a flat 9. And we'll look at that later. Okay, so good 2-5-1s in the key of C major. Remember, chords come from scales, and if you want to sound like you know what you're doing and like the lines that you're playing are going to make sense, start to work at backing tracks in this way by starting with simple roots, add a fifth, add the 3, add the 7. And in this case, we're adding the 7 below, and start to build little phrases, build little lines, and always listen for those chord changes. If this video was helpful to you, like, subscribe. It helps the algorithm immensely. Buy me a coffee. Buy one of my books, which you can get on Amazon. And please leave a question. I get back to all the questions with fairly lengthy answers. So thanks for stopping by. Thanks for your support, and we'll see you real soon.